Hi everyone, it's JST, and I'm going to do a speed run of a recent commission that I've done for the lovely and talented Lucia Larezza. She's making a Spotify EP, I think that's how you say it, but the link, the description and the details is going to be linked below. All right. It's coming out on January 29th, so watch that space. So I wanted to just do this to document my process. There's going to be some artists, better artists out there who's either going to agree or disagree with how I work, but for those of you out there who are looking for advice or have got none at all, then it is mine to offer. But so I'm gonna break it down into stages: brief, sketches and reference, approval, create, approval again, render, deliver. Okay. First one for the brief: have a consultation call. It's way better than asking just 20 questions on a questionnaire. In a call, you can make a connection with the client and a connection with the project. If you can make that connection with the client, your work will be able to connect back with them and they'll be really pleased with the work. And then hopefully the people who are going to consume your artwork or going to go to the client's page with your artwork, the client's going to be able to make that connection with their viewers or consumers or whatever. Have a consultation call, trust me. So really, you need to ask questions that help you move on to the next step. That was a bit of advice that my sister gave me, and she is very, very right. If you don't know what to ask, just ask the question that you need to know in order to get sketching or to get making. And then you'll be able to think of questions as you get up and move along. But, so the questions I was asking was, I wanted to know about Lucia and her story and where she wants to go and what her career is going to be all about. 2, what the actual task was. So she wanted a Spotify album cover, so that was just going to be a square image, or it could have been vertical as well, or it could have been a bunch of different things. 3, ask what the desired outcome is, because if you figure out that if the client comes to you saying, I want to get a logo because I want to get more follows and likes, it's not going to achieve that, chief. So you're going to need to reassess what you think the task is. So you're going to go back to question 2. But also it gives you an opportunity for you to offer more of your services or to bring in extra people to help out with the project if it was required. Don't try and add bells and whistles for something that doesn't need to be, okay? Because the client's going to find out eventually, and it's just not good practice, right? If it needs it, pull it in. If it's good to have it, pull it in. But otherwise, keep it as simple as possible. The next question I asked, question 4, was how can we make this yours? And I mean the client's. How can you get the story, the emotion, the spirit of the desired outcome and the task? How do you get that into the actual artwork? How do you make it connect with the viewer? And also making sure that your artwork sort of connects it to the client's brand. So all the pretty colors that I used, that was to get it, because the client loved those colors, and we'll get into that later, but she was able to really connect with that because of the color, right? And then finally, any inspiration and references. So the client really loves Genshin Impact, the video game, and she loves a bunch of books and a bunch of films, and I noted all of that down as sort of mood board. She likes anime chibis, because I did a sketch of her once and she really, really liked it, so we went ahead and actually made an album cover out of it. So who'd have thunk it, eh? There's going to be more questions that you ask, but as you get more and more good at consultation calls, you'll know the right questions to ask. But again, this video is just a quick way to start out, so there you go. Then we got onto the sketch phase. When it comes to sketches, do it on paper. It's quick, it's easy, and it's better for making ideas. If you're able to sort of like touch your work and sort of move around it, you've got like full control over what your hand's doing, you'll be able to generate the ideas, because that's what you're not trying to make sketches, you're trying to come up with ideas here. So that's why I say always paper, pencil, and pen, instead of doing it digital first. There's wiggle room, but again, it's really on a project by project basis. So once you've finished all of your sketches and ideas, you can't think of anything else, put it down for an hour. Just leave it for a little bit. Then when you come back to it, if you've got any ideas that are burning in your mind, you're like, I must make this, I must draw this, then jot it down. Make sure you get those ideas down. If you haven't got anything like that, then just stop. and then just send it to the client and get their approval. Now here, do not ask, do you like anything here? Because you run the risk of the client saying no. So what you need to do is instead, don't ask open-ended questions. So for example, you can say stuff like, do you like sketch A or sketch B or C or D or, you know, whatever. And why? Okay. So even if the client says no, you'll be able to find out why. So the next round of sketches that you do, you'll be able to make sketches that the client actually likes, you know. Now, personally, I do the brief and the sketches for free because honestly, it doesn't take that long, but also it saves me hours of work doing the wrong thing for the client, and that stuff just gets a bit messy when it comes to invoicing. You know, if you did the work, then you should get paid for it. But, you know, again, if you do the brief and the sketches right, then you don't run that risk of wasting time. Which is money, honestly. But yeah, so once you've got the agreement on the brief, the specifications, and the sketches, then you can start creating, which you're going to start seeing round about now. Now, first of all, with the creation, I want to give a massive shout out to Matt H. I'm going to give you all of the details and links in the description below, but he made some fantastic Photoshop brushes, like really organic, really gritty in detail, but like if I was going to make all this sort of like you can see on the line work right now, all of that sort of like really sort of organic and gritty detail, if I was going to do that from scratch, that'd take me it took me hours, but with those brushes it took me minutes. I was thrilled to bits with them. So do make sure you check out those brushes if you like, yeah, if you want to have that sort of pencil-ish style in there, or like paintbrush style in there. I thoroughly recommend those brushes just to start out. They're great. Anyway, so when it comes to creation, I first set out the composition, the anatomy, and the like blocks of the elements that make up the image. So background, characters, text, I just put in squares basically, or like sort of very simple shapes. Then once all that was agreed, I made all of the line elements for each of those bits. Then I put in the base colors for the character. And in this case, I sort of did the line and the colors for the characters in the background just because they were kind of simple. So, but most of the time you want to build the project up all at once gradually. Then once I added some color to it all, made sure that the background had all the elements in. Make sure there's no white canvas on the space unless it's there for a purpose. Right? Then we added in some light. Then we added in the text. And then we did the final render layer and any post effects on top of that. At the end of each of those stages, I sent a snapshot off to the client to make sure that it was what she was after. But it was also good to keep her in the loop in terms of how far the project was. She really appreciated it. So that's something I thoroughly recommend doing. Once you get to the end of the creation, review the brief and the specs and the sketches and assess whether the work you've made achieves what you set out to do at the start of this project, with the brief, with the specs, with the sketches. Okay. Finally, when you've got the go-ahead from you and the client, make it, do the final render changes or post-effect changes or whatever it is, and then clearly name your work. So if you're going to make a square Instagram image, project name, date, vertical image or horizontal image or square image, or if it's for print, A5, page 1, whatever. Then you can put it all together in one zip. But send the invoice first. And when all of that's agreed and taken care of, then you can send off the assets to the client. Some people are going to agree or disagree. But, honestly, it's up to you and who you listen to. And you'll learn more as you do more and more commissions. So, try it your way, try it my way, try it your way, whatever works. Just keep doing that. Again, it's going to differ by project basis, but just keep going and you'll learn. When you finally got all of that done, then just do a debrief and reflect on the project, so you can keep asking about the client story and where they're going to go next, and then you can sort of ask around for not ask for opportunities, but you can say, all right, so your logo's made, but if you're going to need a social media campaign, either I could do it or I know this great guy who can help you out. And they'll either say yes or no, but that's completely fine. And if you've got a real interest in the project itself, or like the whoever's commissioning you, you know, ask, like, you know, you can go back in a month's time and say, hey, how did that go? Or, you know, how is you and your how are you and your goals coming? Because if it's something that you're really interested in, then just keep that connection going, you know? And that's pretty much it. But I'm going to finish up with just a couple of final points. And I briefly mentioned it a second ago. Just keep going. It's really important. Just keep going. Whatever it is. If you're struggling, good. It means you're learning. Okay? Now, if you're but then also know when you're struggling too much. And if you are, reassess the brief, reassess the specification, reassess the specifications, reassess whether you've got enough time and work hours. And if you're out of either of those, then go back to the client, explain the situation, and then offer them what the next step should be. Either get one more person in or redefine how long the project's going to take. Yeah, don't be afraid to start over following that. But, you know, if you do your brief and your sketches right, you don't really need to. But if you have to, just be honest and respectful with the client and say, look, you know, I don't think this work is going to achieve what was set out in the brief and the specification. Kind of leave it as a last resort, but again, don't be afraid to start over. It's completely fine. A lot of great work has been made just from starting from scratch. You know, it's the story of every artist. Just don't be afraid of it. Okay. And then finally, don't be afraid to say no to a project, but make sure you've either forwarded it onto a friend or fellow artist or graphic designer, or if you've got no one that you can think of, just find someone on Instagram or someone you are really keen on Instagram and you think that they can do the project. If you say, I can't do it, and then just close it off there, you're closing off opportunity, which just don't, you know what I mean? If you forward your work onto someone else, two things will happen. One, there is a chance that that artist will come back and scratch your back. Two, the client may come back to you because even though you weren't able to fulfill that project, the client may still think, oh, well, they weren't able to do this, but they kind of knew what they were talking about and I don't. So I'm going to go back to them on certain things. But yeah, anyway, that's it. I've rambled on for far too long. But, you know, thanks for coming by. Thanks for seeing my work. And yeah, I hope you enjoy it. And it was very helpful. But I shall definitely be seeing you guys on the next speedrun. But I also live stream all of my commissions on Twitch TV/JSTaskis. And all of that stuff gets updated onto my Instagram, which is /JSTaskis. But yeah, again, take care of yourself, guys. And I'll catch you all later.